Okay, here we are back again with another one. I want to thank everybody, all my new followers. I was amazed. Got a pretty good amount of views on, I guess, tweaking the algorithm on God's word. I love that. Today we're going to talk about another one being in that. Like I said, I was going to break the four up in, Abraham, Lot's wife, and Sarah. Talking about sabotaging, self sabotaging your blessing. I'm trying to get back to where I was on here. Today we're going to talk about Lot. We talked about his wife. Now we're going to talk about Lot. Lot was an opportunist. And like I said, we're going to, for those of you who want to follow along with in the book, I'll post it in the description and everything. The chapter Genesis 12 through 19. Basically, we're going to be in, and then we're going to incorporate Hebrews 11 verses 8 and 9, talking about sojourning in the land. Remember, sojourning meant dwelling in a place longer than necessary. Actually, dwelling in a place that you wasn't supposed to be in, to dwell in. Like I say, talking about Lot, we're going to be talking about the people, that's living off your blessing. There's danger in having opportunists around you. They always mooching off of you. They're like a leech. Living vicariously through your life and through your blessings. I always say the oil ran down Aaron's beard, which means Aaron was of the Levitical priesthood. And as God blessed and poured the oil down on the priest, the oil runs. And, if you next to him, you get blessed. That's why I always talk about getting oily or greasy. That means you're next to somebody that's blessed or have the favor or the grace of God, and they're walking in it, in obedience and everything. If sometimes, being disconnected from the vine, the leaf fall off, you're not connected to the vine, like they talk about in John 15. If you're not connected to the vine, how do you expect to, get any flow? If my arm is disconnected from the rest of my body, it's going to die. So you got to be connected to somebody that is operating and functioning in the truth, walking in spirit and in truth, in order to experience the blessings of God. And then, like I said, you got to have your own favor. You got to learn for yourself. Being connected to somebody only supposed to be for a season. You're not just supposed to run around in their blessing, because if you run around in their blessing, when that time comes, you ain't got your own blessing. So you got to know, spirit and in truth for yourself. Like I say, it's a danger living vicariously off somebody else, because say that person passed, or say that person is no longer there, then what are you going to do? That's going to cause a hiccup in your situation, because you're living off somebody else instead of being self-sufficient for yourself. In my industry, like I said, I always try to give an example. In my industry, I have worked for several agencies. It's like they just want to pop up in a trunk and throw a business up and start making all this money or whatever. Owners, they don't have no education. They don't know nothing about the business. All they want to do is put a building in place, hire people that know what they're supposed to do, that are credentialed to do what they do, and sit back and collect a check. But the problem with that is I've been in several agencies where people that are credentialed, they go on to bigger and better things, or maybe they get caught up doing something and they leave. And when they leave, it leaves that owner scrambling, because that owner been making money off of the back of somebody else, the credentials of somebody else, but they don't know how to do it themselves. That's basically what it was like. Lot was never given the promise. He was never called by God, at least, to be in the promise with Abraham. Lot was Abraham's nephew. His father had passed. And I know his father was wealthy, because his father even had a city in his name. His father was Haran, and they came out of the city of Haran. So Lot, I guess had a silver spoon in his mouth. He really didn't have to learn nothing or do nothing, because he lived with his father, he lived with his family. A lot of these older uh, sons and daughters that's sitting up on the couch of their parents' house know that they don't have to do anything because their parents are taking care of them. And life is good. But when they go out there and having to start to pay bills and save money for their own selves, generally some of them run back to the parents' house. Then there are those that really, push up and they stay out there. Mine, I try to keep them out there as long as possible. I try to help them from a distance, that way they stay out there, because I like my peace and quiet. I don't like that back and forth. I don't do the revolving door. When people are living off of you, when they're leeching off of you, it drains you. And I'm saying, not that I don't want to or whatever, but if I'm sitting here providing my livelihood and your livelihood too, either I got to work twice as hard to keep my storehouse full, or it's going to drain out, it's going to burn out, it's going to run dry. So it's never for people to live on us. We are all each kings and queens, which means we have our own kingdom, and that's how God provided it for us. That's how he meant for us to be. We are supposed to be the lender and not the borrower. We're not supposed to be leeching off people. Like I said, Lot was an opportunist. He just wanted to leech off people because he didn't know how to do nothing himself, I would assume, because like I said, his dad was, wealthy. He didn't have to want for nothing. And his dad was in some corruption and all this kind of stuff. He grew up in it, tradition or whatever. Some of us are being held back because we still in the traditions of our family, of our relatives, our ancestors and stuff like that, because it's was the thing to do back then. But sometimes it ain't what's right. God didn't like it then and he don't like it now. So that's what I'm saying. When you are an opportunist, or you have an opportunist pulling on you, it's going to slow you down. It's going to hold you back. And you're not going to receive the blessings of God while you have that opportunist with you, because like I say, when we get to Abraham, I'll explain it more. But Abraham sojourned in his land because he took something that God said not to take. And that was Lot. I understand Lot was his nephew, was his relative, and his father had died. And, he felt some way about him. But if God say no, it's no. Sometimes you are hanging on to people, places, and things that you are trying to take over into the promise that God gave you, and God is saying you got to let it go. What are you holding on to that you can't let go, and it's keeping you out of your promise? That's how you sabotage your blessing. Because whatever it is, whatever promise God give you, he's not going to give it to you and cause that thing to mess it up. Because when God gives you a promise, it's everlasting. You're going to know that he did it. He don't give you something just for a season. He give you something that he ain't no Indian giver. He give it to you because he wants you to have it for long term or whatever. He don't want nothing to be able to take it away from you. And he ain't going to share his glory with any kind of evil. He ain't going to share his glory with you. So what are we hanging on to? Like I say, Lot was an opportunist. He just wanted to go where he felt was comfortable. He just wanted to go places where he felt he can, come up or whatever. He knew of God, because I know that they had that in that area. There was different gods and stuff that his father was serving. Serving God and serving your flesh, you can't do both. So Lot was more so in the flesh. He compromised, but he was able to hear God or discern God when, stuff was getting tight. Let's just say it like that. People that know of God, they want to do whatever they want to do, be in the flesh doing what they want to do. And, at the last minute, they want to pull out or whatever. What if there isn't a last minute? What if you don't have a last word? God knows all and sees all. And then your judgment day is the day that you stand before him. Whenever your life ends on this side, that's your judgment day. And however you lived your life going to up to this point is what you're going to be judged on. You can't just all of a sudden at the last minute, give in. Because what if there is no last minute? There are people that have been decapitated. There are people that have lost their life in a car wreck. There are ways that you lose your life and there is no last breath. Evil can hit you at the last spur of the moment. And whatever you're doing, if it's not glorifying God, who you think is glorifying? You got to walk in spirit and in truth. Like I said, this is a learned behavior. No, none of us is perfect. I'm not perfect. But I try to be on the right side more so than the left side. So I try to walk in the righteousness of God versus my own righteousness. Because my own righteousness, went upside some heads sometimes. But I'm just saying, you can't live vicariously off other people. I always say to my children, your mama's prayers is only going to carry you so far. They out there doing their thing. They getting their ministry, learning what they learning. But, I can hear it in them that they're coming closer to God because, they're asking questions or they're doing things or saying things different. My 21-year-old, she doing stuff she ain't never done before, I guess just to say she could do it or whatever. But God is spanking that butt. And she knows how to come back, and she knows, the scripture says, train them up in the way that she should go, for that when they grow old, they'll never depart from it. So after they get their butt whooped, they know how to come back because they know how they've been trained or whatever. I ain't got to sit there and Bible thump them and beat them on the head. They already know. It was already instilled in them. Now that they old enough and grown, can go out there and do what they want to do, then that's what they do. But like I say, talking about Lot, some of us are losing our blessings, sabotaging our blessings because we are either being an opportunist, just going for this opportunity or that opportunity, living vicariously off somebody else, mooching off somebody else, or we got somebody mooching off of us, hanging on to us that, God don't want to go over into the promised land. Holding, like I said earlier, just disconnecting from certain people has opened up doors because I was connected to some people that God did not want to go with me, that God did not want to go into this venture that I'm going into. Like I said, doors are opening, opportunities are arising, but that wouldn't have never arose if I'd have still been connected to this person and that person, or if I still would have been doing this, that, X, Y, and Z. So take inventory of your life. Is it glorifying God? Are you carrying somebody that they really need to stand up on their own to be self-sufficient and carry their own self? Or, codependency. Or, like I said, are you being codependent? Codependent is not for the person. The codependency is for you because you feel needed. You feel like you got to pay God in everybody's life. There's nothing wrong with helping people and everything, but when it takes up so much of your time to where you can't do for yourself, that's when you become an infidel. That's what an infidel is knowing what you're supposed to do and not doing it, and trying to help somebody else do for themselves. He said, teach a man to fish. Like I said, we talk about Lot right now. I'm gonna break it up. Don't be an opportunist. Don't let people just live off of you, mooch off of you. And I'm talking to my ladies now. We all get so gung-ho about these men, and they want to invite us to this and invite us to that. But if they're not inviting you to be with you, to court you as far as take you out to dinner, but they're always inviting you to be around this professional or that organization or this gathering or whatever, then they really don't want you. They just want you on maybe you arm candy, who knows? Maybe they just want to be in your presence or to say that they know you or whatever. If they're not inviting you to settings where it's just you and them, then don't sit there and think that it's you and them. We sit there and get infatuated and all that kind of stuff about these men. And in the same way, men do the same thing with women. So it's not gender specific. It's just I'm a female and I believe in the King James Version. So I understand that people doing what they want to do nowadays, but I believe in male and female, but from birth. But I'm just saying, if we want to, people are always telling us that we bite here and bite there or whatever, but we like this person, we have a crush on this person, maybe we're infatuated with this person, but this person is never inviting us to intimate times or times alone or times where they just want to spend time with you and them, or maybe they're inviting you to hang out with the boys or hang out with the guys or whatever. Double dates is fine or whatever, but if that's all it is all the time, you can't get to know nobody like that. You mess around and get in a long-term relationship. That's how you find out things about people that you should have found out in the courting season. I'm old school. In the courting, I was raised by my grandparents. So get to know people before you start laying down with them. Because once you lay down with them and open up your legs, that is marriage in the eyes of God. So, and once you get there, love is blind. You start getting all this woozy feelings inside and everything, and you can't discern like you would normally discern because, let's just say it throws a facade or whatever. Get to know somebody before you get into that arena. Like I said, there are so many STDs popping up. You want to get to know somebody before you catch one of them, because it would be a sad thing that you have a one-night stand or never see that person and you end up with HIV or something like that. So make sure you are not dealing with an opportunist, and make sure you are not an opportunist yourself. So walk in obedience, and whatever that looks like for you is for you. Don't try to walk in anybody else's obedience. Maybe they can't handle the things that you handle. So like I was just at Walmart just a few minutes ago, and I ran into a minister and his wife, and they was asking me why I wasn't in the churches and everything. I said, well, I ain't found one that can kind of match my energy. I find one, they want to hang out in the juke joints, and it's all right to go in there and watch, lounge or whatever, because one of my best friends is a bass player. So it's all right to go sit and listen to music and everything. But when you go in there twerking and coming out drunk and drinking and all that kind of stuff, that's not a good look or whatever. And that's not walking in spirit and in truth. You go in there, might have a conversation with somebody that's going through, and you might give them some words or something that might change their life around. Jesus even hung out with the people that didn't hang out in church. So I'm not saying that, but when I said that, I said, and then they said they was going to invite me to they do like events and shows at a lounge or whatever. I said, no, I'm not saying I don't do those things. I'm just saying I don't go out there and act crazy. I don't act like the world. I can go to certain places and enjoy certain things, but I don't go out there and act as the world do. So, like I say, make sure you're not going out acting as the world do, because that's not glorifying God. And when you are saying one thing and preaching another, and preaching one thing, but you're doing another. Remember, behavioral analysts, we look at what you do more than what you say. So, like I say, I'm gonna get off of here. This is making this too long. But like I say, Lot was an opportunist. Pay attention to the opportunists that you have hanging around. The ones that only coming to you for something because they want to do something. They want to get something. In my industry, people want to hang around me because they want to bill on me. They want to use my number, so that they can make money, and they want to pay me pennies or whatever. So I just stay to myself and I pick and choose what I want to do or whatever. Make sure people are using you and both of you are getting the benefit and God is getting the blessing out of it. Don't just let people use you and just for their glory and then mess around there. Like I say, in my industry, you end up in prison somewhere or whatever, hanging out with people like that. But y'all, be encouraged. Stay blessed.